What's going on, everybody? So today I'm going to be real for a little bit. Over the course of the last 10 years, I've been seeing a particular computer store, becoming more of a pronounced presence in social media or just YouTube. This company is kind of starting off their social media launch in a midway. And that store is none other than Microcenter. Now, I used to work at Microcenter for about a year, and there were so many good people working at that store. I remember we all got along to the point that we started hanging out after work and just talking like genuine people. Opening the store at 6 in the morning and staying a little bit overtime till after 7. We really loved our jobs. And I remember talking to the front salesman that sold the laptops, and we always thought differently about them because I was in the build your own section. And I remember getting introduced to all the staff, and all the staff were just the coolest people you'll ever meet. Just try to remember one of your friends that you'll never forget, like your best friend. They all acted like that. They were so cool and so open, and I love every single one of them. But of course, we had to move on because we were just co-workers. Even though I had a few of their numbers, the way this story ends is not very good. Now, the reason I mention those amazing people and the potential that they could have had in my life is because Microcenter ruined it all. And yes, they ruined friendships. Isn't that weird? And I think that's more of a horror story than people are ready to hear, right? Usually a horror story is like, oh, they made me sell a $5,000 computer. I couldn't do it. No, I sold a $9,000 computer. Fuck you. This is more about the people that you know. And the reason why you sell is because you're a genuine person that wants to see your customer genuinely happy, right? That's the kind of salesman I was. And yes, I'm still pissed about this because I got fired. So who gives a shit about me getting fired? People get fired all the time. I'm not mad about that. And I kind of saw it coming. You know why? Because the second we heard somebody was coming from a little more higher up from Texas, we knew something was going down. And this guy was like 70 years old. I'm pretty sure he's one of the CEOs or maybe even a founding member. And he came down with a very calm, direct demeanor. I've never seen anybody like him. I've never seen like an actual CEO or somebody that possibly owned the business actually come down to talk to people to say, hey, hold that door, boy. He didn't treat particular people very well. So we kind of expected this. You know, the millionaires will be the millionaires, right? But he was legitimately a millionaire, but he was also a working man. So I respected him because he definitely knew how to freaking work. I'll tell you that. He was a hard worker, but he didn't realize what was important at the time, what was getting more modernized, and that was social media. Advertising your store on social media is the top thing to do. And this was only about 8 years ago. So social media was at an all-time high. I remember some of the YouTube channels like Linus Tech Tips I would put on a big screen so everybody could see it, right? Trying to tell Microcenter, hey, dumbasses, advertise your store. You just got a crummy website. That thing doesn't even work properly. I could probably program that better with my eyes closed than you guys can. I remember their website used to crash all the time, but now I'm pretty sure they have an app. I don't know. I don't follow them because I don't give a crap. But when I see them on social media, it makes me think like, oh, so everyone was right. So they came to the store, just to continue the story, and the first thing they said is, this place isn't very organized. It seems like we need to hold you guys here after hours to restock because we want the customer to clearly see the items. I'm like, this store is in a random parking lot in Brooklyn. Okay, I used to live in New York, where the only cars passing are going 45 to 50 miles an hour. Yeah, crossing that street was real fun from the train. Not only would we have to bust our asses going to work, but we'd get blamed for barely any customers getting into their store. Maybe why would you have your store in this huge parking lot in the middle of nowhere in Brooklyn where nobody goes to it? It's right next to like a red light district or something. There was prostitutes everywhere. It was absolutely like the worst place to be in New York City, and they had a freaking computer store there. The place was kind of next to the last place I worked to, so I just went there because I thought computers were cool. That's a simple reason why I wanted to work there. I thought, man, this place is awesome. Where the hell did you guys come from? I never even noticed, and I walked to work near that location and I never even noticed it. You know why? Because it was in the middle of freaking nowhere. And whose fault was that? It was the person who bought the store who had enough faith to put it in a place that was just good enough to gain sales. It seemed like that person didn't like it very much, but they're still open, so maybe they're doing okay. But the only reason why they're doing okay is because of the networking aspect, because people look on websites for their computer parts and it shows Microcenter up there. It's not because they're located in a particular spot. So whenever somebody were to mention, like me, maybe I could post something on my social media. Maybe we can help advertise some of the things that we have here. They thought it was a ridiculous idea, and all they did was make us stay 4 more hours after work. Sometimes I would be out at 12 in the morning, closing up just to get there the very next day at 5 in the morning. I did a lot of overtime. You know why? Because I put in a lot of work because I cared about this job. And I think computers are cool, so I like being around them and people that like them as well. But yeah, those people were good to work with, and they slowly got picked off. My My coworkers were there 2 or 3 years before I got there, so they knew everything. It was like being shown around by the Willy Wonka of computers. They were like the coolest computer people I've ever met, but we were salesmen, so we had to be charismatic. So the big boss or CEO, whatever he was, came down, stepped right into my friend's face and said, if you continue doing what you're doing, you won't be here for very long. As simple as that. Now, he of course had an old gravelly old man voice, so it didn't sound as intimidating, but I bet if he was younger, he'd be an asshole. But to me, he was just an old man trying to tell somebody how to do their job. But the thing is, a lot of the times, they paid $4 an hour minimum. And the only thing that could get you more money is selling computer parts. And we were getting too much of a big cut of that. So the big CEO came down and made us take care of different locations every single day for about 3 to 4 hours of our shift. That means we had less than half of our shift to get a sale to possibly go above the $4 an hour. Now, of course, they were paying us shit because obviously it was all counting on the sale. And you're going to sell computer parts pretty easy if somebody's interested enough. I managed, like I said, to sell a $9,000 computer. My commission for that day alone was $2,000. And that was the course of 3 days. I just got lucky, but we were getting cut a break, and that was different for underdogs like us. We're the computer guys. You're not supposed to be making a lot of money off computers, right? But we had this higher up looking at us like he's been working with us for years and understands exactly how it is to be a salesperson. I honestly didn't think he understood anything because we had a supervisor and a manager that actually understood that, and they were cool as hell. Everybody else definitely weren't in sales before. There's a lot of pressure with that. You have to keep track of about 20 people every single day. You have to keep numbers so you can call people. You stay on a regular basis trying to sell these computer parts with people personally. And of course, you have to stand up 8 hours a day. No sitting down. They didn't provide chairs to us. They didn't want us to be too comfortable. They wanted us to be on our feet. I remember when I brought shoes to that place. Horrible mistake. After training somebody, I had to tell them, hey, never bring those shoes. They're going to hurt in about 2 hours. And oh boy, did they hurt. They were complaining the whole time, even though they were very positive people. It is very painful to stand on your feet on that ground. But anyway, after the higher up got in his face, my friend kindly said, well, then I'm not going to fucking work here anymore, and just walked out. This guy worked there for 3 years before I got there, and he just walked out because he's never been so disrespected in his life. About 6 more people left because they couldn't handle the bullshit, is what every single one of them said. So these higher ups didn't care who they were cutting out. They just wanted more money for themselves. They didn't want the sales reps to get anything. Even if I was called a knowledge advisor, apparently I didn't know enough about it to sell it. Because for 4 hours every single morning from 5 or 6 a.m. after taking the train for an hour, I would have to stock every single item. They would pick particular people they wanted to get rid of and overwhelm them with 4 hours of organizing and stocking computer parts. Now, computer parts can be as small as a CPU chip, but they can also be as big as a whole ass case that you need to put on the 3rd level of your display. And they didn't have ladders. So I had to do that for about 4 hours, completely exhausted, sweating. They start complaining, hey, kind of smells like sweat over here. Are you okay? Do you need clothes? I'm like, no, I've just been stalking for 4 hours and I'm tired as hell. But of course I didn't say that to them. I said, no, it's okay. It's just a hygiene issue. I had to blame myself because, well, they were trying to intimidate me. And when people try to do that, that means they want something particular. They want a particular reaction out of you. So I don't give them the reaction, but instead made their time a little harder in a way that only they could understand in their little language of business. So that's not the end of this horror story. There was someone I was working with that was pregnant, and one of the CEOs had some kind of cousin or whatever he was working above us. He would always yell at us. I remember he yelled at me one time for not putting a sticker on something, but he was yelling at this pregnant woman, and she was very young. She wasn't like 40 or anything. She was in her 20s, and he asked her, do you care about your job more or your baby? Now, just remember, she was still pregnant. It's not like she had a kid and couldn't afford a nanny or something. She couldn't afford to be alone because the baby was still attached to her body. And this guy was saying, do you care about your job or your baby? And he's worked with her for years. And I felt like that was so cruel that it had to be a joke. That's the first thing us nice guys think about. Oh, it's got to be a joke, right? They can't be that crazy or evil. But no, he was that. And so the worst thing he ever did was yelling at me. Because let's just say after he yelled at me, he got fired in 2 weeks. Because you don't fucking yell at me. I don't think I get paid enough, even though we were getting paid at an average of $25 an hour. I guess that's just too much to make on sales, right? It couldn't have just been our knowledge of computers and the fact that we were addicted to them. We were giving up our life to know computers for what we loved and making decent money out of it. And the higher ups just went, there has to be something wrong. Get rid of all of them. They're too good. Yes, we were good salesmen, but we were also very knowledgeable. We knew a lot more about computers and social media than you did. And here they are talking to a pregnant woman and telling her to question the baby that hasn't even been born yet. Now, who's the bad guy and the good guy in this story? It can't be the guy screaming at pregnant women. She's amazing, by the way. She knew everybody by their name. She treated you like an actual human. And she did that all while pregnant. I think that's completely badass. But to question someone's loyalty to their baby and knowing that their loyalty to you has been good, and just because you can't get a few more $1,000s from a sale in your pocket, they were losing and they were so mad at us. We were doing so well. We were beating the system. We were all making a good amount of money going out that night. Yo, guys, you want a drink? And we had a really good time, but not for that long, obviously. There were things that needed to be fixed. They fired me too soon for me to actually see some kind of improvement. Apparently, there was supposed to be something opening up right next to it. I'm not sure if it ever did, but it was heartbreaking to get fired from that place because I was busting my ass all the time. But of course, I may have not been perfect, like a lot of people aren't. I should have walked away, but hey, that was good money. I was a dumbass for staying for the money. Microcenter back in the day, 9 years ago, I'm not sure if that person died and now somebody else new that actually knows how to run a business about computers has taken over. It seems like they have. It seems like Microcenter is owned by a bunch of cool people now. Or maybe they changed their mind. It's about time that Microcenter realized the wrongs that they did, especially to their employees. And honestly, after working at that sales job, I do not trust another sales job. But that manager wasn't very good either. He would literally yell at everyone in public. It was horrible. He was a horrible person and he was a horrible manager. But do I regret working at Microcenter? Not really. I think it's one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. I sometimes go back there just to see some old friends and they seem like family. They're just open arms. Yo, what's going on, man? Like they all know you and they remember you because they are a community of people, but a huge chunk of that community was lost. We were definitely not treated very well. So yeah, of course they treated us differently because it is really hard to understand those things and it's not exactly marketable. I understand. But to give us something that isn't exactly marketable and think that it's a better idea to have a stock for 4 hours of our shift opposed to earning at least double our base pay, which is $4 an hour. You're already spitting in our faces with $4 an hour, and I'm pretty sure that was illegal. But the moral of the story is that I never want to work with Microcenter ever. Even if I have a sponsorship opportunity, I'm never going to fucking work with them. Fuck them. They already cut this bridge off. They burned it. It went down the river. It's done. But yeah, guys, have you ever worked at a place that was just an absolute terror to even be there at times because it was so competitive and toxic? That's what Microcenter was in the very last 6 months I worked there. But in the first 6 months, I really loved my experiences at Microcenter. But of course, when any CEO comes down to say anything, you know there's going to be a lot of moving around and a lot of cages rattled. I used to work for an antivirus company, and they would spread viruses. They would just send a bunch of 80-year-olds a notification on their screen saying, call this company so they can fix your virus. And of course, we had the software. I only did that job for about 1 day because they were literally the person that Jason Statham was killing in Beekeeper. But yeah, I feel like it was just a sleazy sales job at the end of the day, and that's how it felt. Because the people that manage Microcenter showed their real faces. When they're desperate, they will throw you under the bus and they'll get rid of you as fast as possible, even if it's an entire community of people that really love what they're doing and truly have a passion for computers. It broke my heart to see that because those were actual people that were passionate, and they even got magazines in the mail about computers and followed the latest tech all the time. They followed every single development of Intel and AMD, and that was around the time where Intel and AMD were kind of becoming equals, and slightly before the time Intel started to be hated. So we were selling a lot of Intel computers there, but it was just so horrible to try to sell something and then for one of the managers to come up to us and say, hey, there's stuff that you haven't organized in that random corner. Look, it's one of those toys for the Raspberry Pi or one of those toys for the 3D printers. Look at that. You have to go there. Go away from the sales floor. Go away from that. It was just so strange that they were desperately trying to get us off the floor just to put dumb items on top of the sections because there were actually no places to put those items in the first place. They were hidden from the public. They were just trying to make us busy for no reason because you can't even see those items anyway. But they were getting so much stock that they had to pile it up, and it made everything look worse. Ironically, they could have just kept it in the back and we could have been just like Best Buy. Hey, I'll check the back. What, did you guys not own the back of the store? You can't just keep your items in the back or have us put it in the system. But of course, their system was very low tech and everything was by wire when a lot of other stores were doing everything wirelessly. Microcenter still had guys going around with paper and pen. It was that barbaric to work there. I think GameStop at the time was even more high tech than Microcenter, but GameStop has already won social media the world over over. Even when people are talking bad about GameStop, some people still go there because they have to, just like that movie Dumb Money. But Microcenter's still getting there. They need some YouTubers to go in and advertise their store because they trust that YouTuber specifically. But I feel like it's also a bit closed-minded. They could be a little more proactive with this instead of just getting random YouTubers to do it. I get it. That makes sense for today's standards. But there are other ways. I rarely see a Microcenter ad. They could just pay for an ad. But of course, they're like, hey, come to our store. We will pay you in computer parts. If a lot of those YouTubers even get anything. But yeah, the main reason why I wanted to mention it to you guys, because that's how I feel about Microcenter. I really love working there, but at the same time, it was one of the most heartbreaking experiences I've ever been through. I never appreciated and cared for people or huge amounts of people in that way ever before. I was still pretty innocent, but I was smart enough to know who the good and bad people were. And it was obvious the guy yelling at my pregnant friend was wrong. And I just wanted to let you guys know that if they get canceled, I wouldn't care. I'm just speaking my mind. I'm not naming any names because, well, I know Microcenter is pretty powerful. The only name that I like to mention is the fact that I used to work at Microcenter and it was a 2-star experience. But if you want to work there, you'll probably have an amazing time in a different location. But if you have to deal with those higher ups that are the soul of the business, as they say, you're not going to have a good time. I just think those people didn't deserve to be fired or yelled at in public. They deserve to get respect, and we deserve to get respect. And for some reason, some people at Microcenter do not agree with that. And also the second lesson of Microcenter, never yell at me. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching, and let me know if you have any horror stories of your own. Hope you enjoyed the video. Later.